Well, hello and welcome back to the latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, when it comes to dating and relationships, many people do have a block when it comes to making decisions on what to do, as in choosing the right partner, where to look, what to do. And when they get into relationships, they just believe that maybe they're not worthy for the person that they're meeting, and things can go very, very wrong. Now, joining me today, I've got an excellent speaker for you. I've got the wonderful Danny Greaves, who is an author, he is a speaker, and he is a life coach who specialises in the human mind and all things to do with human behaviour. Danny, welcome to my show. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Really inspired to be here.
I'm very, very privileged to have you here. Thank you very much indeed. Now, you reached out to me because you told me that before you became a coach, or maybe when you were a coach, you had some horrible blocks in relationships. Is that right?
Absolutely. It was, without a doubt, the bane of my life for a long time.
What was happening?
So I can remember going all the way back to when I was in primary school. And even when I would feel attracted to girls around in my year group or maybe the year above, I just never really dared to say anything. So I might try and do gestures to try and express it in a silent, underhanded way, but they're not mind readers, so no one really picked up on it. And I just never really dared to say it out loud.
When you said gestures, I thought initially you meant waving your hands around, but you meant
More
you
like giving them gifts, doing little actions for them, but not actually saying why I'm doing it and just hoping that they kind of figured things out.
right, trying to entertain them, trying to make them think you're a nice guy, and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
very, very common. Now, these things happen at primary school, and they just shape our life, don't they, as we go on? It's horrendous, really, isn't it, that these things happen? Did you have some bad experience, some knockbacks at the time? Do you remember that far back? I don't.
Well, I remember in primary school and secondary school, there really not really being any setbacks because I didn't actually put myself out there to be turned down.
Yeah.
I would kind of watch from the inside and play out that I wish I would have done this or I wish I would have said that. But I didn't really do anything. It was only when I went to uni, and that was mainly with the addition of alcohol, that I actually dared to say a little bit more and express myself. So I didn't have many rejections, if you like, but I felt like I was getting them because I didn't actually engage.
Was this mainly shyness? I'll say that again. Was this mainly shyness?
It was a big part to do with shyness, but only really in expressing how I felt. So, I was in the football team, I had lots of good friends, I had a really good family network. So, in terms of female friends, I had lots of female friends. So, I wasn't shy in terms of communicating with them in general, but actually saying, let's go that step further and let's make it like a romantic connection. That's where I was incredibly shy.
Because you just didn't want to get rejected or told
Yeah.
you're not good enough. Yeah, and that held you back for quite some time until university. And then alcohol does come into play, and it does change things a little bit for many people. But I do have clients now in their 50s, their 60s, and their 70s who are in exactly the same position, but they haven't made a change. And they've still got these mental blocks that they don't want to put themselves out there because the fear of being rejected isn't worth it, isn't worth the effort to them. But what they really want is to find the partner of their dreams, of course. And it's down to some circumstance or something that's happened to them in their past that's really, really held them back. So at university, you had the addition of alcohol, like you said. Did it make you more confident or just more flirty or just more outgoing when you were in a bar or a pub?
Even when I was in a bar and a pub, the idea of actually going and chatting someone up, that was my worst nightmare. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to say. And I can remember imagining, going up to someone and just being turned down on the spot, not even being able to sit down and say hello. So that was the major fear. So alcohol actually usually saved me towards the end of the night when I was just drunk and then I didn't really have any filters. So I would just speak.
Yeah, people do that all the time, don't they? They just
Absolutely.
they hide behind this barrier, behind this alcoholic phase. And even now, as fully blown adults, people go out on their dates and they just hide behind alcohol because they don't know what to do. They're a bit nervous. Everyone's nervous when it comes to this. I don't really recommend that clubs are a good way to meet people in the first place because for most people, it's horrendous, isn't it? It's awful.
Totally agree.
I used to hate dancing. I used to didn't like drinking too much. Well, I did when I was younger. That's probably true to say that. When I was at university, I drank quite a bit, and I did that to talk to girls, get a bit drunk, try and entertain them, and charm them that way. They used to work, but it's common to have these fears because it's your friends and how they react to you if things don't work out as well. It's an embarrassment if you have a fail.
And it just seems to spread, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
you worry about one friend hearing about it, and then a couple of friends hear about it, and then all of a sudden you have this idea that everyone's laughing at you, and that is like one of the biggest fears people face: the idea of being ridiculed and laughed at.
They do, and everyone has that for different reasons in life. That's why people hate doing public speaking, putting themselves out there at all. But this does happen a lot when it comes to people growing up. But this held you back for quite some time, you said, didn't you? These mental blocks.
It really did. Even when I was sort of past the not speaking stage, that's when I thought, okay, this isn't working for me. I'll go online. I signed up to all the different apps. I was on all the different platforms you can imagine. And I actually had quite a few dates. I had quite a lot of dates. A lot of them would be nice, but because I wasn't feeling myself, I was feeling anxious. I wasn't really sure how to do it. I didn't really come across as myself. I just came across as a little bit bland and a little bit boring, I think. And that then led to me to try and create some strategies to overcome that. And I've got two pretty memorable stories, if you'd like me to share those, about what not to do.
What not to do? Do tell me.
So the first one I remember is I was on a dating site and we arranged a meetup, and I just really wanted to impress her. And I thought, okay, like, how do you impress a woman? What did they love? And I thought, women love dancing. And this is where my head was at the time. So I thought, I'll arrange to go to a salsa dance class and she'll absolutely love it. What I didn't think about was I'm an awful dancer. Like, I'm a horrendous dancer. I can fully hold my hands up and say that. But I thought it would be a good idea. And then when we got on the date, she said, oh, I'm a salsa dancer as well. So we ended up going to the dance class where she was effectively a professional, and I'd never done it in my life and was awful. And it was the most awkward time of my life. So, well, so that was a huge learning experience about sticking to what I know.
Don't you think if you'd have thought differently at the time, you could have made it more fun and laughed at yourself and it would have been more successful if she really enjoyed dancing?
I definitely think I was focusing so much on myself and thinking about, I wonder what she's thinking about. I bet she's not having a great time. I look stupid.
Yeah.
And then about 3/4 of the way through the session, she kind of left dancing with me and started to go dance with the instructor. And then I was just kind of like, this has gone downhill. Fortunately, I was able to laugh about it with my friends afterwards. But in the moment, it was a pretty painful one.
That does happen in dance classes. People tend to swap partners quite a bit.
And I just didn't know. Yeah.
You didn't know that? No, I did salsa lessons at university, and I loved it. I did 2 classes, but I have to confess to this that I did it as a way to meet women, and I was pretty terrible at it. And I didn't go back after 2 lessons because I was so terrible. But I do wish, looking back, even me as the great dating expert here, I wish I'd gone back to this and persevered with it a bit longer, because it was a good fun thing to do. I just found it an absolute struggle. So yeah. It wasn't just you. I think guys in general do have a problem with dancing, really. So what was your second story, Danny?
The second one was when I was probably 25 and I was at work, and there was someone that I'd fancied her for quite a while. And again, I just didn't dare tell her. We'd become really friendly, but I just didn't dare go that extra step. And I thought, okay, what can I do to make this really clear without saying it? So I invited her around for lunch, which we sometimes did. It was a friendly lunch. And I don't know where it came from, but I came up with the idea of trying the naked chef routine. So I disappeared just before the start of cooking, came out in just an apron, and then proceeded to cook lunch to the girl that I was with, completely horrified, shocked, couldn't say a word. I've never seen anyone so uncomfortable. And that was a difficult lunch. And again, afterwards, I just thought, surely there's an easier way to do this.
I hope there was no sharp knives involved.
There was a bit of spatter from the pan, though. So I did.
Oh no, I wouldn't fancy doing that at all. So what made you think that was a good idea?
To be honest, I don't know. The only thing I can remember is I want to make it obvious, but I don't want to have the conversation where I have to say it. So it was the fear around that. How do I say it? What do you say? What's the conversation? How do I do it? So I went to the other extreme, and that really didn't work.
So you thought you'd rather get naked and rather than tell someone that you like them?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that ties in though, just getting naked behind an apron. It doesn't really make it clear that you like her. Unless you're stood there naked apart from the apron saying, by the way, I really like you. And then she's probably going to run out the door, isn't she? If she likes you or not. That's going to scare someone off. But do you know what? We've all got strange dating stories. I've got a book full of them. We discussed books off podcast before we started recording this. I've got one called The Dating Guru's Funny Dating Stories. And I have some bizarre, weird and wonderful stories in there. But that's definitely one that I've never heard of before. So
yeah, one of my specialties.
We'll add that to my next edition that isn't about me. I had an idea a long time ago to write books about all my weird dating stories. And if I'm such a good dating expert, why was I having all these bad dates and why couldn't I meet somebody? And I had an idea I was going to date 365 women in a year. But it never came to that because I met my wife and the book became something different. So I was very lucky. But you decided that all these blocks were stopping you. And like you said, you decided to do something about this, didn't you?
I did. I'd been thinking about getting some help, but I didn't really want to go down the therapy route as such because I wanted something that was a little bit more proactive. I wanted a coach essentially. And I was referred to a coach through a friend, and we had a bit of an introductory meeting. And I just expressed to him that I just really wanted to have a genuine connection with someone, and I wanted to find a relationship. So he said, yeah, I can help with that. We booked in a session. In that one session, just my mind was blown. So I just got insights into why I'd been so shy, the chemistry that I've been taking with me. And I just had this huge emotional release in that session. And then 10 days later, I met my fiance.
Wow. Where did you meet her?
So I plucked up the courage to go speed dating so I could actually meet someone in person. And when I went to the event, I was relaxed, I was comfortable, and I was just like, I'm just going to be myself. And actually, it was the first date probably that I really went on where I just showed up as me, and it went pretty well.
Obviously. So you met your fiance, and how long ago was this?
This was coming up to 6 years ago.
Okay. So are you now married, or have you just delayed things for 6 years?
Are getting married in about a week's time.
Wow, okay, fantastic. That's a really, really good success story then, isn't it?
That's a great one.
So we're talking a semi-lockdown wedding then, aren't we? Are the rules different at the moment?
So we've streamlined it, as we would like to say, down to family and friends. And then when things open up, we're going to have a big celebration. So we're going to do both of them.
Fantastic. Well, brilliant. Congratulations on that. And I hope
Thank
it all goes
you.
well next week. That's amazing to hear. Though I wasn't going to wedding shame you there or anything, but you came up with that. I'm just genuinely interested. People tell me 6 years have gone by. Okay, I know we've had COVID and things like that. I've had a lot of success stories myself, and I mention this a lot on my podcast, but they've all been delayed because of the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
But I am starting to get the invitations coming through again, which is good. So fingers crossed, I'll be able to go to these and celebrate with all the clients there. So, can you go a bit deeper in terms of what this session involved then? Was it a one-off session that you had? Was it hypnotherapy? Was it confidence counselling? What exactly was it?
It was the start of a process. I mean, I very rarely, sometimes there's one session that makes a huge difference, but
Yes.
actually, in terms of sustained change, it needs some help over a period of time. But this was, it had been building up. I think I had everything else in place. It was just this one block that had bottlenecked effectively.
Yeah.
And the coach really just helped me learn how my mind works. And when I learned how my mind works, and actually I learned I could make changes to that, and I was in control. And we worked through a couple of events from when I was younger, just released the emotions from those. And it was a pretty intense session. But after that, I knew something was different straight away.
Amazing. That's amazing. And were you a coach before this, or did it make you become a coach?
That is the single moment that transitioned me from where I was to moving into coaching. So my background is as a physio. So I was always interested in the brain and the nervous system,
Yeah.
but it was that one session that made me think, this is how much of a difference I could make in other people's lives.
Yeah.
So this is what I'd like to do.
Wow, that's such a great story there. And it
Mm.
also proves that speed dating can work. Because I'm always telling people I've run hundreds and hundreds of speed dating events over the years. And even during the whole lockdown, some virtual speed dating events has been going on. And I recommended to some clients, and they've gone out on their first dates and met people because of these virtual speed dating events. So they really can work. So this helped you become a coach yourself. So you got rid of these blocks. And now I believe you help people get rid of their own blocks, don't you?
Yeah, so it kind of links to that void I had when I was younger in terms of being able to express myself. And the more people I've worked with in lots of different industries, is that people have these amazing stories, they have these untapped resources, or they have great technical skill. But the one thing that they struggle to do is actually put themselves out there and share all the value that they have. So my mission now is to actually help people have the courage, have the determination, and to enjoy speaking about what they love doing. Because if you're going to get paid for it, you might as well love doing it.
Very, very true. And I'm very lucky to have a job that I love talking and I love getting paid for it. So it works out really well. I get to help people, which is really, really
Exactly.
good. Yes, you've got to do something that you really, really enjoy. So you've developed your own 6-step process, I believe, about how you do this.
Yes, this is called the growth process, and it's essentially a combination of best practices in terms of dissolving fears and overcoming those blocks, combined with a supportive community to actually give you a space to practice in,
Hmm.
some structure and accountability to make sure that you stay on track and you do the work, and then some actual tools and tactics to get there. So we start off through what we call the grounding module, and that's really finding out about those early experiences that might hold you back, of which people often have many. We then go into resilience, which is helping you to actually deal with criticism, deal with rejection, deal with fears as they come up. So actually you feel robust enough to take challenges on.
Yeah.
We then go into optimize, and that's really about thinking about the people that you already admire. So the people that have the things that you enjoy and admire, and finding out where you have it in yourself. So that's where we start to upgrade things. Then we go into wisdom. What a lot of people don't realize is that fears are perpetuated by the way that they compare themselves to how they wish it would be. So if we think about speaking, which is what I do a lot, or if we think about dating in that environment, if we have the fantasy that we're going to be completely charming and charismatic and incredibly humorous, if we have that fantasy in our head, then that actually gets us to judge ourselves anytime we don't do anything that doesn't match up to that. So when we can crack those fantasies and just help you see that you're a human being and you can just be yourself, that lets all of that other stuff fade away. And after that, it's just about practice and speaking.
That's amazing. A lot of that sounds very similar to what I do, but I haven't actually broken it down into different steps. But I love the names you've given that, particularly optimize. That's quite useful when it comes to dating, because I always tell
Yeah.
people if they feel quite shy, everyone's got a famous actor or actress that they really look up to. I think they're amazing. They're so confident on television. If you can watch how they act, how they hold themselves, and you can copy that, you mirror what works, don't you? And you model that,
Absolutely.
and the way they stand, the way they talk, the way that they speak, and it works really, really well. So lots of very useful information there. I bet the process is very, very effective. So let's talk about the actual blocks people have in relationships, other than just shyness and making the first move. What blocks do you see people have most commonly?
The three biggest fears that I see people come up against is the fear of rejection, or the fear of sort of being dismissed, the fear of making mistakes and getting it wrong, and the fear of being sort of laughed at. So it's those combination, and they all link into each other and they all connect with one another. But often there's the deep lying fear underneath of I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, as you sort of alluded to at the very beginning. And these fears come up in different guises and different forms, but generally it's those three fears that hold people back. And when they have an experience where they get maybe knocked back in some way, and I'm sure there isn't anyone out there who doesn't appreciate that if you're going to be in the dating game for a little while, there's going to be some bits that don't go so well. There's going to be some challenges. And if you're not able to handle them, you start to turn that into evidence for the belief that you have in terms of not being good enough. So they kind of all feed into each other.
They certainly do. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy after a while. I'm not going to meet someone, I'm going to fail, and it becomes that way. Now,
Yes.
you've been with your partner all these years now. Do you have moments of doubt still? Moments of confrontation, moments of issues when you get blocks, or are you completely free of that?
I certainly don't have any doubts that I'm with the ideal partner for me. I don't have any doubts at all about that. Do I have moments where I doubt myself, or I doubt if I did something the way it could have been done differently? Or do we have confrontations? Absolutely. But regardless of those moments and actions, I'm certain we're on the right path. And all of the major confrontations that we've had have actually been turned into things that have helped us to connect on a deeper level. So they've just been fuel to help us move forwards.
That's how it should be. Nobody has a perfect relationship. That's not even me. It's not what happens. There's
Which I
always
think
going
is
to be.
good to know, isn't it?
It is. That's why I want my listeners to know that people are always looking for perfection. If it was perfection, it'd be quite boring, really, wouldn't it? I think, like you said, it's the conflicts and the arguments and the discussions that help you grow and move forwards. Otherwise, life's very, very boring. So, yeah, that's what happens. But you're not even married yet. My 10th wedding anniversary this Friday. So,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. So that's an achievement in itself, and I'm very proud of that. But if somebody is thinking, well, I really want to find somebody now. I've got my own blocks. I'm willing to work through this and find somebody. What can somebody do to increase their chances of finding somebody?
There's a few different approaches that we can take to this. The most overarching one is whenever we're thinking about an action, whether we're conscious of it or not, we've already weighed up, is it going to be advantageous to us, or is it actually going to be a drawback? Is it going to be painful for us? So if you perceive that actually being in a relationship has more pain associated with it, based on past events, based on family relationships, based on friends, if at a certain deep level you think that relationships come with all of these pains, then you may find that you sabotage the efforts that you make, or you don't follow through with things, or things just don't end up working out. And the main reason for that is you won't do something and you won't stick with it if there's pain attached to it. So actually figuring out where did this come from? What is this fear about? And actually, what will I get from a relationship to balance that scale? Then you can go into it being open to both sides. Because as you mentioned a few minutes ago, if you have an idea that once you're in a relationship, it's going to be smooth sailing, easy, and just pure romance all the way through, then you're going to get met with reality quite quickly. So having an open mind is the most effective way to go about it, I think.
A lot of people have got memories of very, very painful breakups, and it holds them back, doesn't it, in life? So you're right in what you're saying there. I have to ask, your fiance, did she have any blocks at all? Or was she just completely natural at this?
I would say every human has blocks, and whether they show up in relationships, I think there's definitely moments where she has done an action or said something, and then later on we've talked through it. There's been moments where I've reacted in a like disproportionately, and then later on we've had to come back to talk it through. So I think it's just part of being a human. And when you're with someone for a prolonged period of time, there's going to be those moments. I think what the key is to not make sure that those moments don't accumulate into a resentment. So making sure that any of those disagreements, they're neutralized, they're cleared, so you can both move forwards with them, rather than actually burying them away. And then all of a sudden, someone leaves the car door open or the boot open, and there's this huge explosion of an argument for no reason whatsoever. And that's often how I see it shows up, in terms of just a big outburst for no reason.
That's a great answer. What I really meant was, how was she before she met you? Did she have her own blocks then? Or did you see something in you and thought, this guy's amazing, I want to learn from him? Or
I think for my partner, at least, relationships were really natural. It was something that I didn't really come across, and she didn't really mention having any blocks. It was something for her was quite easy. I was the one who brought the challenge to that side.
that's why I ask, because sometimes one person has more challenges than the other, and that can push people away sometimes, or it can make you draw closer because you can bond faster. You get more things to talk about.
I think it's the willingness to work on it. Like if there is one partner who it comes quite naturally, and the other partner has blocks, but they're not willing to work on it, I think that's what feeds the resentment. Whereas if you can see, okay, the other person has some challenges, but they're working through it, they're investing in someone, they're getting some expert help, then they're doing all they can. I think that's the binding part. It's when we don't take action that I think causes problems.
Completely agree. And that's true of dating. If you don't take any action, don't do anything about it, going to meet somebody, because you're too held back by this block of rejection, you just won't meet somebody. So you have to get yourself out there. But this block of rejection is happening more and more at the moment. People are more nervous about going out and meeting people now. Again, thanks to the pandemic, no one wants to go out there. Everyone's a bit nervous. Introverted people thought this has been great. I haven't got to go out and meet people now. So what advice would you give someone now who is thinking, I really want to go out there and meet somebody, but I've got this mental block that I'm going to get rejected, so what's the point? So what tips could you give them now, someone that's thinking, well, the summer's coming up, I want to do this, but I'm a little bit nervous?
There's two tips. One is for the past, one is for the future. So in terms of the past, go to a moment where you've perceived to have been rejected and actually find out, how did that moment benefit you? How did it help you grow? What did you learn from it? And essentially, how did that help your personal journey? So when you can go to that moment and find out, actually, I'm really glad they said that, because if they didn't, all of this other stuff wouldn't have happened, then the actual idea of rejection itself melts away, because all you can see is, regardless of what happens, you'll turn it into something that helps you move forwards. So if you have moments in the past where you've had a painful rejection, if you just leave that sitting there, all it'll do is keep repeating. Whereas if you just invest a little bit of time to go back in and see how it served you, that moment melts away and then you're free. So that's kind of the past tactic. In terms of the future, one of my mentors, Tanya, taught me this beautiful line, which is, any conscious decision made for you is an unconscious decision made by you. So effectively, you are participating in everything that happens. So if you're involved with someone and you perceive that they turn you down or reject you, then find out, what is it about them that actually meant you wanted them to reject you. So it might be the way that they treated you, the way that they messaged you, their body language. There'll be subtle clues about something that you just didn't like, and you might not have been conscious of it. So just by finding out, actually, why didn't you want this to happen, then frees you up from it was just their decision, to realizing that actually you played your part and it wasn't right for you.
That's great advice there. And I would also add to this, some rejection isn't usually personal anyway. When you were saying that, I had a flashback to something that's haunted me since I was a child, when I got rejected by a girl a long, long time ago on a camping trip. And I was thinking about it the other day, but at the time it stopped me, really dented my confidence. But looking back on it now, the reason that she rejected me, I'm not going to go into details now because it's not really relevant to this, but looking back on it, she was about 3 years older than me, and I was probably some little kid wanted to see her, and she thought, no, he's too young because girls mature faster. And it wasn't even the personal thing, but her words to me just scared me and haunted me for a long, long time. But even now, everyone likes different things. Everyone's looking for something different. Blondes, brunettes, it doesn't matter, tall or thin, everyone wants different things. So it's not personal. If that person isn't interested, then great, wonderful. They've set you free to go and meet somebody else who will be a better match for you. And that's what it's about. Which is why I like speed dating, actually. That's why I do recommend it, because you might meet 30 people in one night. And if you haven't had a date for some time, you can go out speed dating and you might have 30 interactions. Although, was yours a busy one? Do you remember? Was it a lot of people?
Yes, there was probably 15, 16 speed dates, about 3 minutes apart. I was fortunate in the fact that when we went into the speed dating, I actually saw my partner from across the room, and I noticed her straight away. So I kind of had a beeline for her right from the beginning. But there was 15, it was really relaxed, it was really fun. So I think I saw her on 12 or 13, something around there. So by that point, I was even more relaxed. And it's just great fun. It is really, really good fun. So I'd thoroughly recommend it.
It's all about practice. If you haven't dated for a while, the best way to get rid of this block is get yourself out the house, go and try something. And speed dating is a good thing. Because like you said, you can look around the room, you can know who you're attracted to. And when you have a conversation, you might be more attracted to them. So have to practice with the 12, 13 people first. Practice your flirting, conversation. You'll be so much more relaxed. I did an event a long, long time ago. I had to speed date 100 women in that night. That's a lot of talking, as you can imagine. A lot of talking. But that really, I had to do that because I was working and someone was missing, so I had to step in and do that. But that was fun. I don't regret that for a second. It was great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Danny, for talking to me. Any bonus tips you'd like to give before we finish off?
In terms of a bonus tip, I would say get really clear on actually what you love talking about, what you love doing. And once you're clear on that, and you can speak about that just genuinely, then that will attract people who are interested. Because when you are really clear on who you are, then it just attracts people. So rather than trying to impress other people, have a look inwards, connect to what's important to you, and then you can just be curious and just ask questions.
Great advice there, absolutely. Because people are attracted to people that are passionate about something. So
exactly.
Get some things in your life that you're passionate about if nothing's going on. Danny, thank you so much for joining me. It's been wonderful. If somebody wants to find out more about your coaching and what you do, how can they do that?
The best way is to go to my website. So it's www.dannygreavescoaching.com, and you can find all the information you need there. And thank you very much for having me. It's been great fun.
Thank you for joining me. It's been wonderful. I've learned quite a lot here. And I wish you all the best on your upcoming wedding next week.
Thank you.
And I hope we'll talk again at some point. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespriest.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.